in this video I'm going to teach you how to tune up your cello. I have two cellos. I have an inexpensive student cello and I have my slightly more expensive cello. The strings on that rarely go out of tune and they're quite expensive, so I don't want to risk pulling it out of tune or even breaking a string because they're too expensive to replace. Whereas this one has got slightly cheaper strings on it and it goes out of tune all the time, and I don't mind it getting a bit bumped around, etc. So this one I'll work with to show you how to tune a cello. I should state that most children aren't expected to be able to tune any of their string instruments until about grade 5 or grade 6. There's two reasons for that. First reason is because it's difficult. It requires an awful lot of strength. There's some adults that even find it difficult. To be able to turn these pegs, children just don't have the strength to do that. And the other reason is that children haven't quite developed the ear yet to be able to hear the tones between the strings to see whether it's in tune or not. Adults tend to have a better hearing to be able to know whether it's in tune or not. So, and then the third reason is just simply time. Usually it takes much less time for an adult to tune the cello, especially a music teacher, than it does for a child. But some children are determined to try and give it a go, and we encourage children to give it a go if they want to. So if you want to, give it a go. If you're at home, I would recommend getting a parent to do it rather than the child, because if you break a string, then you might get told off and shouted at, whereas if your parents break a string, then they're just going to have to replace it, aren't they? So here we go. At the moment I've got 4 strings and none of them are in tune. Now, how do you find the first note? How do you work out what am I supposed to be tuning any of these strings to? Ideally, you would have a piano in your house, but that's not always possible. Even I haven't got a piano in my house. So I use an app. There are loads of apps on the market from Apple or for Android that will be able to give you the correct pitch to tune your cello. If you look up Cello Tuner on Google Play or on the Apple iTunes, you'll find several different apps. So I'm not going to recommend any particular one because there's loads and they're usually all good. So use your app to find your first note and you're listening out for the A, but don't worry about getting it too close just yet. So for this exercise I'm going to use an app that I've got on my computer, which is going to let me tune up all 4 strings. I'm going to start off with the C. I don't need to get it perfectly in tune just yet. I want to do each string a little bit at a time. And the reason is you don't want to put too much tension on one side of your bridge, otherwise your bridge can collapse or it can go a bit wonky. So you want to keep the tension the same on all 4 strings, so you tune them up a little bit each time. So what I'm doing here is I'm plucking the string and getting it fairly close to the tune that it's supposed to be, or the note that it's supposed to be. And what I'm doing is as I'm turning, I'm pushing it in, because if you remember it's chamfered, you have to turn and push at the same time. Okay, now I'm going to go back to the beginning, back to my C string, and see if I can get that slightly closer this time. So you can see the amount of strength I'm having to use on this C string. And now I'm going to go back to the G string. other reason why children find it difficult is because sometimes you have to tune it and it's the slightest movement, turning it, it's just a couple of millimeters, and that's quite tricky for children. Okay, so this is going to be the final tune. So you can see it takes a while. Once you've gone through all 4 of them and you go back to the first one, you'll find you need to tune it again. And that's just because the tension keeps changing. Okay, so we're not perfect yet, but we've gotten as far as I'm comfortable getting using the pegs. So it sounds nearly in tune. So the next step is to use the tuners at the bottom. Sometimes people call these adjusters, these circular bits here. So these will let you fine tune. So obviously if you turn them one way, it's going to sharpen the sound. If you turn it the other way, it's going to flatten the sound. So we'll go back to our A. It's a bit flat, so I'm going to sharpen it. Okay, we're going to move on to the D string. It's a bit sharp, so I'm going to flatten it. And I keep plucking to hear when it reaches the right note. And then onto the G string. It's a bit flat, so I'm going to sharpen it. And then finally the C string. It's a bit sharp, so I'm going to flatten it. Perfect. So now you've tuned it so that it sounds nice when you pluck it. You want to do it again with a bow, because it can sometimes make a slightly different tune or a different sound with the bow. I'm going to tighten my bow here. So I'm just going to go through all those notes one more time to make sure I'm absolutely happy with them. Just going to change that G slightly. Just flatten it a little bit. There we go. And that's how you tune a cello. The principle for the violin is practically identical. You just have to be very careful. The violin is easier to tune than cello because you don't have to use quite so much strength, and the pegs are a lot smaller. But because the pegs are smaller, the movements that you need to use are going to be smaller as well. So it's a lot more intricate to get it into tune. It's much more finer detail. So you do have to be very careful. If you are a child and you want to give it a go, that's great. But please do have an adult on hand just to help you if you need an adult. As you can see, it does require quite a bit of strength. The more expensive cellos tend to be a bit easier just because they're better built. This one is a typical student cello, and so you could see I needed to give it a bit of welly. But go for it and let me know how you get on. And I look forward to seeing you all again soon with perfectly tuned cellos.